All right, guys, we're going to get started. Star Citizen fans, at the MOG Nation booth, we have two developers here from Roberts Space Industries who are working on the game Star Citizen. They were gracious enough to come out and spend some time with us today. We're going to have an area right over here to my left for some live questions. If you have live questions for our developers, please come on over here. We're going to start off with just some basic talk about what the game is, and from there we're just going to kind of get into maybe some more intricate questions for these folks about the game. But I would like to introduce Dave Haddock and Ben Lesnick from Roberts Space Industries. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being here. I am Kash from MOG Nation, and let's just get started. How about just talking a little bit about the game? Tell us really what it's about and where it came from.
Ben, would you like to start off?
Oh, sure, I can start us off. So it's a PC game, which is kind of a big deal these days because they said PC gaming was dead for the last 10 years or so, and we decided to prove it wasn't. So we started a crowdfunding project with Chris Roberts. He's the visionary behind all this. If you remember Wing Commander, Privateer, Freelancer back in the day when space sims were a big deal, we've been trying to sell Wing Commander or a similar game to a publisher all these years, and they said, no, there's no interest in PC games, there's no interest in space sims, we want first-person shooters, we want RPGs. And we knew there was an audience out there. So we went to crowdfunding, Kickstarter, earned $9 million in the campaign, broke all sorts of records, and we decided that instead of going to any kind of publisher, we're going to continue raising money and publish this as a entirely fan-funded AAA game, first one ever. We just raised $17 million last night. It's a game in the tradition of old PC games. It's going to push your system specs. It's going to be completely immersive. It's going to be very cool.
Outstanding. And, you know, one of the biggest things was the crowdfunding project. I think that is probably the pinnacle at this, and that's what is making this game so special. So can you maybe just talk a little bit about the origins of that and how it started and what Chris Roberts' vision was with the crowdfunding?
Absolutely. So after 10 years of going to publishers and saying we want to do a space sim, and them telling us there was no audience at all, we said we're gonna prove to Electronic Arts or whoever else had willing to listen that there were fans out there. So we said if we can raise $2 million, we talked to a couple of publishers and they were like, okay, if you can raise $2 million, we'll fund the rest of the project and we can make this happen. And we very quickly proved that people were interested in this game and that publishers were not necessary.
Yeah, and that's something that we've been, I know the fans, especially us, we've been very interested in following because of all the records that were broken on Kickstarter. And I think there's a new number. What was the new number that we heard this morning that we're up to?
We hit $17 million last night. It's almost become part of the game so far to have the community do this together. To the point that we sat down and said we need to show them the work we're doing so far so it doesn't seem like this is everything. So we just released our first playable build, which is it's called the Hangar Module. You can go out there and see the ships you've pledged for and just kind of understand that we're actually building this game instead of just raising money.
Right. So I think one of the things, especially with Kickstarters, is, and we talk about it on podcasts all the time with crowdfunded projects, is that people tend to worry about it. I mean, it's a gamble that you're taking. So I think finally, especially this weekend, and I think most of us wish that you hadn't launched it this weekend because we're all so busy here at the con. But the fact that there is something tangible that's out there now, and depending on whatever money you pledged or if you're subbed, you know, the first thing we got was our cards. Everybody got the cards, and that was at least, now we got something. This project is off, it's going, and that's right. A lot of people are showing their cards this weekend. But I think one of the biggest things that has excited us about the Hangar Module is a lot of us just got to see it for the first time here just a few minutes ago. And to be able to log in and see those ships that you've pledged so far are actually real and walk around the flight deck and see those things is just an amazing experience for us, and one that we all wish we're probably at home sitting at our PCs playing with right now. So, and I think tonight we're gonna have everything. We should have everything set up to be able to pull that up tonight. at the panel that we're going to have at 7 o'clock tonight. So,
Absolutely, and even if we don't, we've got a couple other things to show off.
very good. So, one of the other things that I myself am extremely interested in is lore. And that's something that I really want to get delved into the story of what's going on in the world of Star Citizen. And I know there's been already quite a bit of lore out there, quite a bit of stuff to read. I don't know, maybe you can just talk a little bit about the story. I mean, that's your baby.
Yeah, I mean, again, kind of what you mentioned earlier about the trick with a lot of crowdfunding things is that you basically give your money to these people who are developing a product and then they disappear, and then if all goes well, they come back and they give you your product. Part of the intent with this was Chris wanted the community to be a part of the growth of the thing. So part of his plan with that was he wanted to make the universe feel as alive as possible, and so we started the idea of the news updates, where we're kind of doing in-fiction news events that are happening in the game universe on a weekly basis, so we can start to kind of tease out game mechanic stuff, but we can also kind of just make the world feel alive.
Right.
And then gauging based on reactions from the community, we can kind of modulate that, what works, what doesn't, that type of thing. But yeah, the idea originally behind the lore was we wanted to feel gray, in the sense of there's not stark black and white, good, evil. There's no evil empire. There's no, it's like people are good, people are bad. There's all sorts of different types of people occupied, and that way it feels there's so much wealth of potential for stories that you can tell in the world. And so that was kind of a big goal going into it. It was like we wanted to make the world as fleshed out, interesting, and variable as possible to be able to account for like all these different kind of cool stories that we wanted to explore.
Right. So basically, the way that I see it, I think the way that the gaming community sees it is that there's so many different types of gamers out there. You have your hardcore gamers, you have your casual core gamers, you have gamers that you can hop in for an hour or two, you have gamers that love to RP, you have gamers that love to group, you have gamers that love to solo. Really, what kind of plan do you guys have together as a company to try and encompass as much as you can, try and grab as many of those players as you can, and cater to all those different play styles?
Well, the first thing we did was we set out to make 2 games instead of 1, and they're interconnected. So we've got Star Citizen, which is our massively multiplayer, persistent universe that's going to grow and react to players, and you'll group together to play there, or you can play it single, which is kind of our version of Privateer, which was Chris's classic. Back in the day, you had Wing Commander, which was Star Wars. It was you playing Star Wars, and you were Luke Skywalker, literally, in some of the later versions. And then there was Privateer, which was you were playing Star Wars and you were Han Solo. So that's our Star Citizen. You make your way in the universe, and you can do it with friends and enemies and 1,000 people or 0 people. And then we have Squadron 42, which is our single-player story. It's a classic Wing Commander type game, where you're going to follow a military career, you'll have characters and interactive video and all that, in the grand Chris Roberts cinematic tradition. That was our first way to grab both people who were interested in a single-player game and people who were interested in the multiplayer. And then to connect them together, the idea is at the end of Squadron 42, you'll muster out and you'll be part of the Persistent universe if you want. So you can grow from one to the other.
And you know what? That's something to me that I think is really going to resonate with the community, is the fact that you have 2 ways you can take it, but the entire thing starts with Squadron 42, and you can choose to continue with that, or you can choose to branch out. And I know probably half of MOG Nation, at least the guild that we have going, they all want to be pirates. So I think they're going to get through that as quick as possible, and then they're going to end up on the pirate track. But
right.
I think what an amazing way to capture all those different play styles and really try and grasp the folks. And even here, we talked to a lot of the folks here, and we were all so excited about the panel and having you guys be our guests, that when we get to start talking to folks and you ask them about, have you heard of Star Citizen? Many of them say no, they don't know about the project. But the second that you mention Privateer or Wing Commander, they light up. Oh my gosh, yeah! And you find out how many gamers have been out there for years and years, but those two terms, those two names
still resonate.
Yeah. And that's, I think, that what an amazing feat already. And then for you guys, it's just got to be an experience to be working in that the company. I mean, what an amazing opportunity. One thing that you did mention is community. And you may or may not be able to talk too much about this, but for guilds such as ours, or guilds, there's probably a ton of guilds out there that are really interested in what kind of community aspects that will be built into the game, different functionality that there will be there for gaming groups, large groups, smaller gaming groups that want to get together and play. What types of tools might we expect from Star Citizen for the group gamer, the guild gamer?
Well, I can tell you, you're going to start to find out sooner than you expect. Our next major revision to the website is going to add the guild features to it. So guilds can create their own subforums that they moderate themselves. They can start grouping, basically getting into the game well before it comes out. In the game itself, we're obviously very interested in guilds. We're trying to come up with different play experiences. We don't want to leave out this guy who wants to go and explore the universe on his own. That's a big part of the appeal to this sort of game. But we're definitely going to have guilds who get together and run ships together. We have multi-crewed ships that wouldn't really be that much fun for a single player. I mean, you can hire NPCs and you can still do it. But we have destroyers, corvettes, and as you advance up towards they call it end game in regular MMOs, but we don't really have an end game. But you'll have economy nodes that guilds can take over, space stations they can run together. You take privateer and you add all these higher level functions, and it's the higher level functions, higher level stuff, the management and the running factions together that guilds are going to really enjoy.
Right, and you know what? I think something you just said there, and you may have you just glanced over a little bit, but I caught it, about the not really having an established end game, and the reason being is because it's community and player created. And that's huge. That is going to be huge in such a large game like this. So,
absolutely,
bravo! We are so excited about it.
Players are going to have a huge impact. We're building a fully featured economy that the players can then break. Our fiction is going to react to the players. It's very much not going to be this typical MMO. You get a big expansion every 18 months, and that's it. We're planning from the ground up to be reactive to the players.
Outstanding. A living, breathing world, and I think that's what everybody has been craving, especially in this this type of IP in space where we haven't had anything like this. So you got a bunch of ravenous fans. I think we're going to open up some questions to the community. Do we have some folks? You got questions? Okay, I'm going to swing the mic over. Right into the front of it.
All right, so it's been compared that the UAE is similar to the Roman Empire. Just what brought that about, and I personally think that's a cool comparison, but just describe that theme and what that's like.
Yeah, it was one of the sort of initial launching points for the inspiration. Very early on in the very early conversations, it was sort of when you have these very broad macro discussions about like what type of game universe you want to create. Like you throw out all the classic Star Wars, Star Trek. How do they set it up? What are they trying to emulate? And there was something about the Roman Empire that I think Chris really gravitated towards. It was the kind of the politicking, the military aspect, the imperialistic aspect to it, and it was almost the empire under strain moment. That was like, it's an interesting time period. Like, how does something this big and this massive break? And so, yeah, that became the launching point. And I mean, we did in early conversations. We tried to kind of start there with that as the inspiration, and then as we built, kind of branch away, because obviously we're not making a Fall of the Roman Empire game. So we want to diverge from it, but it's still, I mean, a very heavy influence on kind of a lot. It's like kind of the first place you can go to kind of go, how should we handle this faction or this thing, and like go look at that, see how they would handle it, and then tweak it a little bit.
Very good, sir. Got another question here.
Dave, if I remember right, you said that you've started working on the Squadron 42 story.
Yes.
Have you created any wingmen yet that you can tell us about a little bit?
I have. I don't think I can.
You got him.
Yeah, there's still. I mean, yeah, I wrote out. This is from a couple months ago, but I'd written out like basically a list of 16 character types. Possible characters with like little blurbs about them and little kind of personality tics and who they would sound like and stuff like that. And have been in the process of kind of fleshing them out to figure out sort of what their personal story is. Because the tricky thing about Squadron 42 is because your character in that transfers over to the persistent universe, we're doing something very different than even, say, Wing Commander, where it's a created character that you're just inhabiting. And so that character has a personality, that character has an emotional arc and stuff. And we can't ascribe any knowledge of history because what my character's background is might differ than what you think your character's background is. So Chris's idea around this was, you put it on the wingmen. You give them really compelling stories, and then the player will gravitate towards the stories that attract them. So it's almost the character arc of the single-player game, and we're still testing this out, but is effectively the character arc of your wingman. So you're based on your interactions, they can change, and they can, how they react to other wingmen and stuff like that all changes. So, in a way to kind of help it feel unique, because that was a very difficult thing. But I can't. As for details, I probably shouldn't.
That sounds really exciting, though.
Cool. Oh, thank you.
I will say this about the details for Dave's Wingman. I was recently looking back into the old dev docs from the original Wing Commander. They actually have them in a museum near where we work in Austin. And I found the original similar synopsis for Wing Commander 1, and it was so very similar to what Dave wrote.
Really?
He absolutely has it. He has that same spirit, and it's going to be cool.
Awesome.
So I'm an IT kind of guy, and I'm curious as to how you do a test environment for this thing in anticipation of the load you'll likely have on it.
Ben?
Based on some of the messages my son showed me this morning about the cloud services, people saying it was like an order of magnitude more than they had ever seen on anything.
Yeah, Ben, what was the count on that?
112 terabytes in 30 minutes, I think.
But what kind of environment do you set up to test that?
Well, bad news is you're asking the wrong guys.
All guys are here. These are the art guys,
Yeah.
the story guys.
Yeah,
We just become amazed when people tell us stuff like 150 terabytes in a half hour.
I honestly don't know, and I think I would just embarrass myself further if I tried to answer it.
How you guys doing?
Oh, great.
Any other questions from the crowd? We got one right here.
Hi guys,
So,
can you hear me? All right. I'm one of the subscribers. I did the I think monthly subscription thing. One of the things that I thought was most fascinating about that is I'll be able to find my name in game at some point. Is that going to be in some back alley planet on some bathroom stall where I'll just for a good time, call this guy?
Right. I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, we haven't really figured out exactly what the thing. I mean, it's been interesting because I remember there was a thread on the forum about that in the subscribers den that was like, where do you think the name of the subscribers would be? Someone had a good idea of they're the passenger manifest of the Artemis,
Oh, that'd be cool.
which was pretty cool. That's
That
a
would
very
be
good
cool.
idea. So we haven't discussed it yet, but and I'm not sure if we'll announce it or just let you guys find it.
Just let us find it.
Okay,
Yeah. Please.
That's good to know. But yeah, so we haven't discussed it yet, but it did pop up recently. As
Well,
a
I'm
thing.
comforted that it won't be in a bathroom stall somewhere.
No, we won't. We won't do that.
I don't know. That would actually be pretty cool.
We'll put Ben on the back.
I would be thrilled to find that. Actually, thank you.
That was Jinx from Old Republic Radio and MOG Nation, by the way, too. So yes, his name does deserve to be on a bathroom stall somewhere. So if that does happen, then I'll be a happy guy anyway.
We'll make it happen. We already have space bathrooms in the game. So.
Certainly on the Constellation.
Yeah.
All right, another question from the crowd.
So, Dave and Ben, can you tell us about tell us which ships are your favorites so far and what you're most excited to do with them?
All right. Retaliator is my personal favorite. Not because I have seen it and it's especially cool compared to the others, but that was kind of my baby. I've always wanted to have a bomber in a game like this. Wing Commander tried it a little bit with the broadsword of Wing 2, but back then you could only have a mission with like nine ships in it at once. So I'm very much looking forward to maybe in Squadron 42's like big World War II bomber style missions with big formations of them and fighters intercepting, and I have the very clear picture of that in my head that I want to see in Star Citizen.
I am a big fan of the 300 series. The Gladiator might be my favorite thus far.
Oh, great! We both picked the ones you can't see yet.
Sorry. But yeah, I mean, it's like I think weirdly enough, the one thing I really am looking forward to is it's sort of pseudo exploring, but it's more of like kind of just going out far and seeing what you come across type thing, like that sort of the voidness of space type thing. If you can capture that sort of the majesty of the scope of everything, and you're just sort of like drifting along, floating in silence, like just sounds amazing, and that's what I'm looking forward to.
Question? Don't be shy.
I guess so exploration is a big feature in this game. Can just thematically speaking, can you describe what that's supposed to be like? Are we moving fast through a system and exploring? Are we inching our way through the system to chart out nebula? Can you describe that yet? Or
well, we can try. We're working hard to try to make exploration something compelling. So we want that feeling of discovery where the first point in exploration is that you're going to be able to discover entire star systems. You'll have to navigate a jump point. We don't quite have the mechanic for that down yet, but it's going to be very difficult to locate, actually navigate a jump point. And once you do it, you have all sorts of options. You can name this star system after whatever you'd like. You can keep it hidden. And
Under approval.
Under approval, yes. Yes, that can be dangerous.
Let's not go crazy. Yeah.
And we're not just procedurally generating these systems, we're populating them with interesting things. There's going to be derelict starships out there. You could probably talk about the Artemis. There'll be planets to land on, natural resources to exploit, and you'll be able to make a profit in the actual game economy by selling the maps to these locations or keeping them hidden and exploiting them yourselves. But we definitely want that sense of awe and wonder out there. We want the space equivalent of the Grand Canyon. We want you to be able to discover it and be the first person in the universe to see that. So
and also be known historically as the first person to see that.
Yep, that's another big point because everything's going to come back to our in-game wiki and kind of the lore. So if you're the player who goes and discovers this amazing thing we've hidden out there, you're going to be remembered for all eternity as the character who discovered that in our world. That's a big part of exploration.
Another question? Outstanding.
Now, Dave, it's well known that Chris is a big fan of Pacific theater, war movies, and that kind of thing, and that heavily influenced Wing Commander. Mm-hmm. Do you have any stories, movies, books that you draw from to create something in a similar vein?
I was sort of going on a sort of space opera binge in the early days. I was reading a lot about ancient Rome just to reacclimate myself with it. I actually found that children's textbooks were extremely helpful because they glaze over a lot of stuff, so you can kind of absorb it quick and then go back and look into stuff. But I was watching. I actually did watch a lot of World War II pilot movies, and Firefly, Battlestar Galactica. I actually just bought Space Above and Beyond on DVD because I remember there was the Alien Ace pilot thing where the dude has the showdown with. That was just awesome.
I just got married and we used the letter from the first episode of Space Above and Beyond as the reading.
That's amazing. Nice. So yeah, a lot of stuff like I read some Ian M. Banks, I got the Foundation books on my Kindle to start reading, and so I was really just trying to get as much as I could possibly do. But I always kind of go back to Firefly as a big one, because the thing about it was it felt like such a lived-in universe. Even though like thematically it's very different, but I like that sort of weird blend of the Mandarin Chinese with Wild West with sci-fi. Like, it's just such a weird combination that it feels real in a weird way. I don't know, but yeah. So, and it's just the characters are really strong, which I always feel like, the technology stuff is cool, but if it's not engaging characters and that you want to be around, then you kind of you can get lost in it.
God, we got the right person writing for this game. It sounds like. I mean, if you look at it from just a perspective for this particular genre, for sci-fi, if you look at it from the perspective of all the influences that you're taking and the fan base that you have, I mean, you're going to have young and guys like us that are kind of middle of the age but don't want to admit that we're old yet. I mean, World War II's huge. The Pacific Theater's huge. That the entire squadron from the Pacific Theater is huge.
The mythos around it, yeah.
Right, and then you're taking things like Firefly. Man, you're striking all kinds of chords with folks out here, and it's just like, oh my God, when's this thing coming out? So, any other questions from the crowd? I myself have a couple.
Good.
Anybody? All right, and we were not going to take too much more of your time, but I know our community, we have a bunch of folks that are just kind of peering in a little bit, may not know too much about Star Citizen. So one question I wanted to ask you about is the very interesting death mechanic that the game has. And I've heard about this, and actually from one of our folks in our community, Sonny Ravencourt, who runs a podcast for Star Citizen called Sonny's Diner. This was a topic that they had for the entire podcast, and it really piqued my interest, the discussion that these guys had. So I wanted to see from your guys' perspective the thoughts and processes that went behind this very interesting death mechanic.
Well, the big thing, and this is all very much from Chris Roberts, this was one of his big things, but we wanted to have permadeath in the game. Chris is a very big fan of games that kind of punish you, and you learn to love them because they are so difficult. So we wanted to have a way for your character to die and be gone forever, and enter into the lore. There'll be a graveyard you can go visit yourself in. So we came up with this mechanic. He posted in something called Death of a Spaceman, and the idea is that you have a limited life. You're not going to die the first time you're shot down, but if you don't maintain your character, if you don't kind of keep yourself safe and up to date, you will eventually die forever, and your money or whatever things you have in your hangar are passed on to your next of kin, and you'll go through the character creation process again.
Outstanding. So and the article of Death of a Spaceman was, I mean, I think everybody just went, what? They were a little freaked out. I think there were some people who were a little bit freaked out about the permadeath thing. You say permadeath, and it really does strike chords with people because it scares them. But the way that this is doing, you're passing things on as a legacy, really allows, for me particularly, and I know a lot of folks out there, will really allow the role players out there to write their own story. Right. So to me, brilliant. I love it. I can't wait to get my hands on it and play it. And I know people out there are going to take it different ways, but it is definitely something that's unique to this game. And go ahead.
We're also doing this all across the game. So NPCs, it's not going to be like a typical MMO where everybody gets together and they kill the Dread Pirate and then he respawns the next day. Whoever kills that guy, that one NPC, has killed him forever, and that's part of our lore. And they will go through the same process of a new leader will rise. It'll be a different character.
There's a power vacuum in the criminal organization, or it's all kind of just about consequence, like establishing that there are consequences. And when I played World of Warcraft, particularly because I'm not very good at it, but I would my character would die about 7,500 times in a week because I would spawn in Hillsbrad and I would get stomped, and I would spawn again and I would get stomped again, and and it's fun because you start to care about whether your character lives or dies. Like, you start getting, I imagine theoretically you're going to be on pins and needles if you've been shot down 6 times and you've got 4 cybernetic limbs now and a bunch of scars. And you're like, next time might be it. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. I don't. It sounded really amazing to me when I first read it. I was like, I was with you guys. I was totally blown away by it.
Very good. Very good. Well, thank you guys for elaborating on that. Is there anything that you guys want to add?
No, we appreciate you having us.
No,
Certainly.
yeah, thank you.
No problem. We're not quite done with you yet. We're going to drag some more information out of you. There's going to be a little bit more later on this afternoon, and of course our panel tonight over at I'm not sure where the location of that is. That's at the Marriott. Say that again, Jinx.
I think it's the Hilton.
I'm sorry. It is at the Hilton in the Grand Ballroom. So if you are at DragonCon, please join us for this. And thank you very much, Dave Haddock.
Thank you very much.
Ben Lesnick.
Thank you very much.
Tune into MOG Nation, mognation.com. And we have tons of podcasts there. We have 2 particular podcasts for Star Citizen. We have Sonny Ravencourt hosting Sonny's Diner along with Zach Brown. And then we also have a podcast called The Frontier. They're bi-weekly podcasts, so every week you have some luscious morsels to feast on about Star Citizen in this game that everybody is waiting to play and see more of. So thank you, gentlemen, and we're going to go off air, and we will see you soon. Thank you, guys. Outstanding.